Hello, carbon-based listeners and silicon-powered friends. Welcome to Mastering the Machine, the podcast where humans and automation collide in perfect harmony. I'm your host, Frank Lamb, and whether you're flesh and blood or circuits and code, we're here to explore industrial automation together. From factory floors to digital cores, we're exploring how machines are reshaping our world, one algorithm at a time. So plug in, power up, and let's master the machine together. My guest is Emily Merritt, a marketing professional and owner of Clearlead Marketing. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Oh, good. So what's been up since last time? I guess I talked to you at OT SCADA CON, but we didn't get into great detail about what you were doing and what's up.
Yeah. I guess everything is great. I have been pretty busy onboarding some new clients. We had the winner of OT SCADA CON, Ixon, was an attendee, and they won like my month worth of content giveaway that I had, and it was fun working with them. We had some really, really good results with the marketing. We posted twice a week for them, help them, create some content. And it went really well. That was fun. And I don't know, ever since then, I've been talking to a lot of people who went to OT SCADA CON, who were like watching it from the sidelines. So yeah, I don't know, things have been like really busy. Plus finishing up some of the OT SCADA CON sponsorship stuff that I was helping manage for them. Like we just did a series, like a shout out series for Opto 22, who was the platinum sponsor. And so we just finished posting for them. As part of like our deal with them coming on and helping out with OT SCADA CON. So yeah, I don't know, it's been fun. It's been like, I feel like I feel like that happened last year too, after OT SCADA CON. It was crazy. I don't know, do you have the same experience or not really?
No, I can't really say that I've picked up any specific business from OT SCADA CON or any other conferences. I do have some questions for you, but first I would like to ask you kind of more personal stuff. How did you get into marketing in the first place and automation related marketing in particular?
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting story. So I went to graduate school for wildlife sciences. And I used to do a lot of scientific writing, research, data collection, data analysis, database management, and also a lot of it involved making pretty posters or pretty presentation slides to show off your research and graphs, charts, all sorts of things. So in graduate school, there was the makings of a lot of graphic design work, a lot of content creation, and a lot of just like basically figuring out how to chop up really complex scientific information in a way that's digestible by a general non-informed audience. And it's interesting because in undergrad I took classes in environmental interpretation, and that's what that was about. How do you bring, these interesting nature concepts that you could teach people along a trail on like interpretive signs or like in a museum or something like that, but how do you break it down so that like a child could understand it? And sometimes that's really hard. And I have found working, like scientists have struggled with this, engineers struggle with this, where they have all of these really complex topics in their head, but they have a hard time breaking it down in digestible enough bite sizes for somebody who may be in the industry, they know, but maybe they don't know the exact jargon that person is using. So, but if if that person used slightly different language that a general audience or their target client could understand, then, maybe they would be able to find more of the people that need their services. But that was a little side tangent. So that's how my writing kind of and graphic design and marketing work evolved from me having a degree in wildlife sciences. Another interesting part about it is that when you're out in nature collecting data on, say, ticks, because I used to research ticks, to collect meaningful enough data to come up with to inform any sort of conclusions, you need months, if not years, of a data set to be able to run analysis on it. What's interesting about social media is you're doing very, very similar research, but instead of it being a deer climbing around in the wood or, walking around in the woods. It's a human on social media scrolling on their feed. And like, there's certain baits that you can use. There's certain traps you can use to try and capture that animal's attention, the human's attention. And then you can run these experiments where like, ooh, does this shiny object attract the human more than that shiny object did? What words or what foods can we put out that will make them want to read more or eat more? So there's all these different experiments that you run, but the really cool thing about it is like if you post something, I know how that post is going to perform within the first couple minutes, 30 minutes of it running. It's not taking me months and years to get feedback. It's taking me instantaneously, and I can check it on the phone from the comfort of my bed instead of having to suit up at 5:30 in the morning to go out in the woods when it's like super hot out and with bugs all around you. So it's really, that was kind of an interesting evolution. So essentially, the skills that I have, I've just kind of evolved them. I did used to edit and write scientific manuscripts. And then I realized that in marketing, especially in like science and educational type of marketing, that there's just way more upside potential, honestly. There's just way more opportunity to make money. My only limiting factor is me and my business acumen, which is an ever-evolving process. So yeah, I know it seems like I'm going on tangents, but basically I was like, I can use my scientific writing and educational writing skills for getting people's services out there. And then I used to bartend several years ago, and I had a client of mine who was an engineer, and he and I or like a customer of mine who was an engineer, and we got to talking, and he's like, hey, I'm a systems integrator. I have an engineering company. Can you do some marketing for me on LinkedIn? I want to grow my LinkedIn following. And I was like, okay, sure. And for a year, I basically took over his profile and then slowly but surely kind of learned the ins and outs of creating content for LinkedIn. And then also, so from a marketing standpoint, like, what content captures people's attention and gets them to engage with it. And then from a lead generation standpoint, I set up connection requests and messaging campaigns targeting ideal client or ideal prospects for his company, and would essentially start conversations with them and see if his services was something that they needed, and then book meetings for him. So I know that's a very long story, but and it's kind of an interesting journey, but that is how I got to where I am in this industry. And I fell in love with people. Randomly, he wanted to take Allie and Nikki, the automation ladies, out to lunch at Automate one year, a couple years ago. And I reached out to them and told them what was up, and they said yes, interestingly enough. And then we became friends with them. And then I started working with the automation ladies on some of their marketing stuff. And then with OT SCADA CON, I did some lead generation stuff with the sponsorships and set up automated messaging campaigns and email campaigns for them. And so then, and then I met all you wonderful people, and it's just kind of evolved from there.
Okay. And then attending OT SCADA CON, obviously you've learned some things about the components and the industry, and you've attended Automate and things like that. So is that kind of how you segued into this niche, or do you still also do other niches?
Yeah, I think no, I've kind of segued into this niche, and I really like it. And I'm definitely going to stay here for a while. It's not to say, like, I mean, really, the stuff that we do at Clearlead Marketing, it can be used for any business, really. Primarily service based. I think probably if a company sold a product, there might be a way to do it that's tasteful on LinkedIn. But services are a little bit easier. So that's why I kind of focus on that. And then this industry happens to be ripe with people who sell services. So it works out. But yeah, I really like it here. I like the people. I feel like I should have been an engineer. I was probably one in a previous life or something. I don't know.
So the guy that you did the work for first,
Yes.
How big was his company?
He had a few integrators that did like contract work for him, and he had, at the time when we started, he had several. This was actually at the height of COVID when this happened, and he had a job working for a facility near where I worked, where they actually coded the vials for the COVID vaccine with a special coating. And so anyway, it was a very interesting specialized project. And he had several of those going on.
One of the questions I wanted, this is where I'm going to get to some of the hardball things. I'm a one-person company. So for me to afford those kinds of things, I have to be doing a decent amount of business, right? And I definitely have to be able to trace the results of what I put out there. You know, I need to be able to measure results. And so far, other than increasing traffic, I didn't see any results. So what's the best thing that a small company or an individual can do to get started in marketing?
I think consistency really is key. And it also really depends on what your messaging and your target is. So like one of the first things that we help people with is like we have a several hour onboarding meeting where we really get into like who, you know, what the company is, what you guys do, who you serve, who is your ideal target client, like basically building out a profile for exactly what your goal is and who you want to target. And sometimes like there have been times where talking with clients, it's like changed, like we started going in with one idea and then it kind of morphed into another one. So we like really go through it. But I think like part of the reason why some of those other marketing efforts don't hit as well is because they don't truly understand who it is that they're trying to talk to and market the services to. And sometimes, especially if they're like on the smaller business owner end of things, sometimes they don't even have a clarified idea of who they should be targeting and how. They know what they do, but they can't necessarily articulate it in like marketing language. So I think that that's one thing that like you can write anything and you can put out a graphic and you can post stuff. But is the stuff actually resonating with the people who you want it to get in front of? Are they interacting with it? Would they find it helpful? Would they find it interesting? Is it just you talking about you, or is it you talking about them and how you help them sort of thing? So, and then, you know, obviously sprinkle in what you do so they know, and then and I think the next part is making it easy for them to buy whatever it is. So like, let's just say you really want to push hard this new Shopify site that you built. I would recommend going hard on content for the next several months, literally just talking about the stuff that you're selling and why and what it can help with. And like, then at the end of every post, just put the link like buy here. You know, you got to go. So that's the other thing too. I think one, people start out doing marketing, not doing enough volume. So they think not doing enough of the right thing, the right type of marketing, helpful marketing, engaging marketing. So they're just putting out content and then they're doing it inconsistently. And then they're sitting there like, oh, this marketing stuff, it's expensive and it sucks. And it's like, okay, well then obviously at some point then you got to realize like, okay, maybe the way that we're going about it is not the right approach. Because it can work. Obviously marketing can work. You wouldn't have huge businesses like Amazon and eBay like you talk about, you know, like marketing works. So it's just finding your secret sauce to what works.
So here's one of my responses, and tell me how you would answer this, because some people have hit me up for marketing services. And my response is generally, I'm a one-person company. I do systems integration, which I always push that. I do systems integration and training, and it doesn't take very many customers to keep my pipeline full. In other words, I went 12 years with mostly 3 customers. So for me to pick up one more consistent customer right now, or a different 3 consistent customers, that's enough. I can't handle more than that, right? Without hiring people, I'm unwilling to hire people. I don't want to grow my company to have other employees because I'm on the road all the time. I can't supervise them even if they were in my facility. I've tried that. It didn't work. So how would you answer those people come to me and they say, you know, hey, we want to help you land new clients. And I always say, well, gosh, if you land more than 2 or 3, I don't even have time to meet with them because I'm busy working. And once I have those 2 or 3, I'm maybe busy forever because my ideal client keeps me busy, right? They're repeat customers.
Okay, so
how would you handle that objection if somebody were saying, okay, you know, you're gonna land me some clients, right? That's what they're offering in a lot of cases. They're gonna get me appointments with clients. and then I can meet with 3 to 5 total, and then I'm busy and my
Yeah.
pipeline's full. So how would you handle that conversation if that was what you
Yeah.
were offering?
So I think for one, those conversations that you get where they're like, "Oh, I'll book appointments, won't get paid until you whatever," those messages. For those, I think they're mostly just focused on quantity over quality. So, I think for that, for somebody like you, I don't think going with a service like them is fruitful. The kind of marketing that we do is a lot more, it's a more quality over quantity. There is a quantity aspect to it, but it's more quality over quantity. And so I think really what it boils down to, how I would respond to it, it really just depends on what your goals are. In your case, I would go with the quality over quantity way. But then even specifically for your case, and if I'm going off on too much of a tangent, correct me, but in your specific case with marketing, like my first question to you would be like, what do you actually like, what do you want to market? Do you want to market yourself as a systems integrator, or because that's very work intensive, or do you want to advertise more your courses or your books or your products? Because that's kind of a completely different direction, and my recommendation would be pick one and use your LinkedIn profile for that specifically, for marketing that specifically.
Before we dive back into today's episode, let me tell you about the team behind Mastering the Machine. When your manufacturing operation needs to level up its automation game, there's one name you need to know: Automation Consulting, LLC. Whether you're integrating new systems, training your workforce, or need expert consulting on industrial automation challenges, we speak both human and machine language fluently. From PLC programming to process optimization, we help manufacturing companies bridge the gap between what is and what's possible. We also host the ultimate training platform for automation professionals. At the Automation Academy, we've created your complete automation learning ecosystem. Our subscription-based training platform gives you unlimited access to comprehensive video courses on systems integration, PLCs, and HMIs. Download technical documents, software tools, and resources that you can actually use in the field. Plus, get personalized job aptitude assistance to advance your career in industrial automation. But here's the best part: connect with fellow automation professionals on IO Central, our exclusive social media platform where the automation community shares knowledge, solves problems, and builds the future together. Whether you're a seasoned engineer or just starting your automation journey, everything you need is at www.automationllc.com. That's automationllc.com. Join the subscription platform where automation expertise meets community. Now back to today's episode. Part of my problem is I'm just small, but you work with bigger customers. You work with people with 10 to 15 to 20 or more integrators, right? So you sometimes
I find that I do help the smaller guys, if you will. It really just depends. I think really what it boils down to is if they see that there is a need to market one of their or sell one of their specific things, and if they have the cash flow for it. I think that's really what it boils down to. Because this stuff isn't cheap. It's very, like, it requires knowledge. It's very labor intensive. And I will say that for the way that my company does it is we do require kind of a when we work with a client, it's not going to be completely hands off on the client's end. We're not the ones to make that generic AI generated content. We do basically try to copy and paste your voice from a transcript in a video and create content out of that, or take text message correspondence that questions I've asked and your answers, and we turn that into content. Recordings that you've had with potential customers or with colleagues or, clients. Video that you take in the field. So we basically try to make the way that we do it is make it a little bit more personable, a little bit more educational. So we do require cooperation from our clients. It's so to say that it takes one more thing off their plate would not be accurate. It takes the job of the desire for them to do LinkedIn content better we help hold their hand through that process and make it as easy on them as possible, where all they have to do is show up, say some stuff that we prompt them to say, and then they can go on their merry way. But there is going to be a cooperation. And then, of course, occasionally, depending on what we're creating, sometimes we need to send them stuff for proof and approval and all that stuff to make sure that we got the voice right. We got because sometimes it's very highly technical content. Sometimes our interpretation of it, since we're not experts, it may not be 100% right. So we send it back. But I guess anyway, all that to say is like it does require, like if you're a small business owner, you want to do marketing and sales, but you want it to be completely hands off where it's just happening while you're also doing your thing, then something like what I offer is probably best for you to delegate to a sales or marketing person on your team, or maybe just not like figure out a way to do content yourself. But as you said, content yourself isn't always the easiest thing. So it's either, I like to say it is content. Doing content is never, like, there's always a cost, right? Either you do it yourself and you take all of the time and the effort to do it yourself, to learn the systems or to figure out how to edit video and what works and what doesn't work and what your audience is going to resonate with, or you spend the money to have somebody do it for you.
Yeah, the email lists are one of the things I always struggled with. I have a MailChimp, I collect names, I have a lead magnet, and I get, hey, somebody downloaded your lead magnet. For a while, my problem was I have nothing new to say, right? I'm not going to send a newsletter every week like Stephen Gates does. He does a wonderful job at that. Hey, are you struggling to become a better programmer and try to raise your salary by $15,000 to move out of being a maintenance electrician into being a programmer? That's a great message. And I don't think if people are really fixated on that, it doesn't bother them to get a reminder once a week for that. Yeah. But that's not.
Well, so the thing about it is, though, is that I'm sure you said you have nothing new to say. Well, that's the glory in it, is you don't necessarily need anything new to say. You can just take what you've already said and just maybe repackage it slightly differently. And with the advent of AI, AI has its pluses and minuses, but one thing it doesn't do bad is rewrite something that you've already written.
Yes.
As long as it doesn't make anything up. But so that's like the cool thing about, and this is what we try to do too, is like if you've got a body of content already sitting there, there's no point in reinventing the wheel. If it's the same old stuff, that's great, because you never know when a new email comes into your list or a new person follows you on LinkedIn. So there's a good chance that even though the person last week saw it, that the new person didn't see it. So they need to see it again and again and again. So a marketer's dream is to build up enough content that performs well enough where all you do is just cycle through it on a regular basis and then occasionally throw some fresh stuff in. But the core of it kind of just gets recycled.
Yeah, AI has been huge for me. And I notice you were talking about feedback, how you get immediate feedback. So I use Claude quite a bit. And I've used ChatGPT. The results weren't as good. And I don't know if you know who Seth Godin is, but I listened to what he said he uses because he's a great writer. And he said he uses Claude and Perplexity. So I tried Claude, and Claude writes so much better than I do, so much more engaging copy, that I just feed it the base in what I want to say, and it rewords it, and it gives me insights, right? How would I, like, for instance, I put in a pitch to speak at Automate this year. They had a deadline of like today. And so I was like, well, I wouldn't mind at least throw something in there to present at Automate. And I told Claude, I said, I want to create an engaging thing about this general concept, this topic. And it spit out, many, many paragraphs. And I just cut the paragraphs that I needed, tweaked them a little bit, and sent that in. And it was awesome. It was way better than I would have done in many hours.
Interesting. Because I've been working a lot with building projects in ChatGPT for clients and myself to help us basically come up with writing guidelines and knowledge that ChatGPT can pull from and then help us. Like, we basically feed it, hey, this is the information we got. Can you create something based off of the project rules? That sort of thing. I have heard really good things about Claude, but honestly, I was just picking a lane, so I stuck with ChatGPT. But maybe I need to dabble with Claude a little bit and see how they do, because I've heard really great things about Claude with writing, particularly for marketing writing.
Yeah, it writes much longer copy.
Okay.
It is going to, like, I've done it on business advice. I'm starting a new niche of my business to do this, and it spits out everything that you would need for a business plan and financials and what you need to go look for and everything. So, but it's going to be many, many paragraphs. It's probably not going to be brief. I did tell it on one of my things, keep it under 175 words, because that's what the presentation said. But it was so bulleted and so it was
Wait,
too much.
did it not keep up with that?
It was under 175 words, but I also the guideline in the submittal said 2 paragraphs or 175 words. It was 10 paragraphs because of the bullet points. And it was very well laid out, but I couldn't paste that in. So I kind of cut and manipulated to make it 2 paragraphs and probably 100 and some odd words. It worked really well. So yeah, I think it writes much better marketing copy than I do. So I'm happy with that. But the other thing that I run into a problem with is, like I said, the MailChimp. To consistently do that, what Stephen Gates said is he sets up a calendar and he automates all that. And so he's writing all of his, I don't know, ad copy maybe at one time, and then it's 10 different things and they get dripped, right? The 10 things get dripped over a period of time. That would work for me, but I'm not sure I have the chops to sit down and do that. So, which is where somebody else comes in, right?
Yeah.
Because somebody else could set all that up and drip it for you and maybe manage the MailChimp, which my daughter offered to do at one time, but her company's gotten a lot bigger and they don't do that. She said, I can refer you to people that, that are more on the intern level that will do this, manage your MailChimp, manage your this and that. We can create content, but they're truly branding now, and they're doing more healthcare because this is Nashville. There's a lot of healthcare here. So they're very successful with that. And I think she humors me because I'm her dad.
Right.
So that's one issue I've had is the email management and the engaging with people over time. I think it's important for the Automation Academy. It's necessary. Yeah.
It really is very similar to how like the messaging campaigns are set up, particularly on LinkedIn for what we do, but for other platforms as well. Same thing. It's you have to come up with a game plan, basically. Do you want a regular newsletter or a weekly news? Do you want a weekly cadence? Do you want just every once in a while check-in? You need a welcome sequence. Like, there's all these different things that you have to consider. Email is one of those things that we only dabble with if we have a purpose, and it's usually doing like we use Apollo and stuff, not necessarily MailChimp. So it's a whole other like I always say, there's no wrong way to market, right? Just pick one or two and then just get really good at those and get the system set up for those and then go from there. Because all of these things, looking at all these things you need to do in one big picture, it's very overwhelming. And so you just got to start someplace, and there's no wrong way to do it. If you pay per click for Google, go for it. If you have an email newsletter that's successful, go for it. If you do LinkedIn marketing and you do content on LinkedIn, go for it. So it's just whatever you do it consistently enough and enough, and have enough, like, take enough risks where because like some of the posts that have done really well that I've done for like OT SCADA CON or even like my company for clients and stuff are usually the ones that you don't necessarily expect to do really well. And so like there's really valuable data in there. Why did that post perform well? Was it a funny meme? Was it funny? Did it say something good? Did it have free resources in it? Try the same post again with just like a slightly different flavor. Maybe like an add-on or like same kind of layout, but a slightly different topic. Try it again, see what does well. And then just keep doing more of the good stuff. And the same thing goes for paid ads. Like your daughter said that LinkedIn ads are expensive. We haven't messed much with them because in the past when they have been really expensive. But I will say that like there are some campaigns where, I had posts that performed really well. What would happen if I boosted those? Like what if, because you can't, as at least right now, you can't boost posts on, oh, actually, maybe you can. Maybe they changed that recently. Anyway, you used to not be able to boost posts on personal pages. You might be able to now. I have to look at that. But like, so you might only be able to boost a post on a company page. Regardless, what if you say posted a post on your personal page, it did really well, go ahead, repost it as a new post on the company page and pay for some ads and see how it does. You want to
Yep.
make sure, my biggest recommendation is make sure that you have a call to action in there, and that call to action be to collect the email or to book the meeting or to sign up for the course or, whatever. Make it easy for them to do the thing you want them to do, but boost a really high performing post.
Yeah, my high performing posts, oddly, I actually had Claude help me write something about my anniversary because I was going to Europe, right? And I said, we're about to go. I've been married to my wife for 40 years, and this is our anniversary, and we're going to go to Europe. And when I come back, I'm going to, get back swinging on this stuff. And that performed because it was personal. Just like
Yeah.
Tim Wilburn stuff, it
Yeah.
performs well because it's got his family in it, and his son's in Europe, and him and his wife are doing this, and we just took I saw their thing the other day. We just took our first Waymo car, and he's got some good expressions that he puts in with it, and so it's good YouTube material, and it performs well. And I think
Yeah.
I think those things do really well. So one more thing, I guess this was the final thing. I forgot to tell you something else that I did pay for.
Well, did you
This
want me to do you want to talk about the newsletters?
it connects to that.
Okay. Okay.
So the podcast, right? I actually had somebody help me set that up professionally, and it was a lady. Great name for her company, Mouthy Broad Media. Okay, and she helped me set up a professional podcast. Had me hosted on Buzzsprout, showed me how to syndicate and how RSS worked, how to advertise, and she strongly suggested creating a newsletter. But I know how much hassle it can be to do a newsletter, and I was going to do a podcast once a week, and I could not keep up with it. I created 5 or 6 ahead of time, and then just didn't have the time to keep up. A newsletter simply adds to that, right?
Right.
The podcast itself is hard to keep up with, and then I got to create a newsletter and keep it coming out consistently. I think it's a great idea having a newsletter, but how, unless somebody else does it for you, where do you get the time to do that?
Yeah. So if you don't have the money to outsource it to somebody like my company or something like my company, then one way to do it, if you wanted to put out a newsletter, I think probably the cheaterest way that I would go about it would be to go to the transcript of the meeting, of the podcast recording, go to the transcript and pull out a few key points that you really liked, whether it was part of like a back and forth part of the conversation or a topic that you want to like clarify a little bit more or elaborate on, whatever. Just take that snippet of transcript. If you can, just take the snippet of transcript and make that the article. Boom, you're done. If you can, but usually you need to clean it up a little bit. So that's where you can bring Claude in, or you can take snippets, take a highlight here, cherry pick some stuff, or you can pull one topic and then just talk about it. And what I like to do is voice record yourself. So you can either pull the transcript or get it in text.
Final question here for you. Webinars, podcasts, YouTube videos, are they, other than being a source for ads, are they by themselves marketing tools?
Yeah, I think anything that gets the word out there about what you do is a marketing tool. Like I'm wearing a shirt. This is a marketing tool in a way. Your business card is a marketing tool. My background for this right now, the purple background, is a marketing tool. So yeah, I think anything that you want it to convey as quickly as possible what you do, how you do it, and who you serve. So if you can get that snippet, but yeah, anything's a marketing tool.
Will it make a sale? Will it enhance the chances of making a sale?
There you go. Enhance the chances of or is it a flashy enough bait for the fish to want to bite?
Very good analogy. And I definitely, I want to emphasize that. Yes, the way you described it is the humans, and it's just like fishing, and you want to attract the bait, or just like a deer or whatever, you want to do something that's going to make them want to eat it. Thank you very much for hanging out with me.
Yeah, no, heck yeah. No, I really appreciate you and thank you for talking. As always, it's lovely talking to you.
At Clearlead on YouTube.
Several different ways that people can get in touch with me. Obviously, LinkedIn is my main avenue that I love. You can also reach us at clearleadmarketing.com. So HEY at clearleadmarketing.com. And LinkedIn, yes, we have some YouTube and stuff. We primarily post on LinkedIn though. Yeah, I'd love to hear from people and talk to you if you have any LinkedIn content creation or lead generation needs. We would be more than happy to talk with you about that.
So Emily-Merritt, MERRITT-Clearlead, and that is your company page. Is that correct?
That's the tail end of my LinkedIn. So that's just like like whatever the website is for LinkedIn. And then that's the end of that. The website is clearleadmarketing.com.
Okay, clearleadmarketing.com. Okay, yeah. Great. Yeah, and I'll post those in the show notes too. Yep.
We market on LinkedIn, we might as well put our LinkedIn up there, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Well, thanks for all the insight. Yeah, all the insight and tips, and
talk to you soon.
We'll see you. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Mastering the Machine. Whether you're headed back to the production line or entering sleep mode, remember, in the world of automation, we're all learning to speak the same language. Thanks for joining me today, both my human listeners and any AI overlords who might be tuning in. Until next time, keep your sensors sharp, your processes optimized, and your curiosity fully operational. This is Frank Lamb signing off. Stay automated, stay amazing.